Comfort is seductive. It whispers to you when the alarm goes off at 4:30 a.m., telling you to stay in bed. It tells you that you've earned a break, even when you haven't. Comfort is the voice that says, take it easy, when you know you should push harder. And it's that same voice that's slowly eroding your potential. Most people don't fail because they don't have the ability. They fail because they fall in love with comfort. They think comfort is peace, but it's not peace. It's a prison made of soft pillows and justifications. You become a hostage to convenience, a slave to the easy path, and eventually you stop fighting, you stop trying, you stop growing. Discipline isn't loud, it doesn't beg for attention, it doesn't wait for you to feel like it. Discipline is quiet, cold, relentless. It shows up when comfort tells you to quit. It shows up when motivation disappears. But here's the problem: comfort feels good in the moment, while discipline only feels good afterward. That's why people default to comfort, because it's instant, it's easy, and your brain is wired to crave ease, not excellence. But comfort makes promises it can't keep. It promises rest and delivers regret. It promises satisfaction and delivers stagnation. It promises happiness and delivers mediocrity. People sabotage themselves by chasing what feels good instead of what makes them good. They choose short-term relief over long-term respect. They pick entertainment over growth, food over focus, sleep over struggle. And every time they do, they train their mind to retreat. Every time you hit snooze, you reinforce weakness. Every time you break your word to yourself, you build doubt. Every time you choose comfort, you give up strength. And it doesn't seem like a big deal at first, but those choices stack. One missed workout becomes 5. One broken promise becomes your default setting. One skipped challenge becomes your lifestyle. And soon, you're not just avoiding discomfort. You're avoiding progress. Comfort blinds you to the consequences. It dulls your senses. It makes you think you're okay because nothing hurts. But there's a deeper pain building, the pain of knowing you could have done more, the pain of wasted time, the pain of watching others pass you, not because they're better, but because they were willing to suffer when you weren't. That's the true cost of comfort. It's not just what you feel, it's what you lose. You lose your edge, you lose your fire, you lose your drive, and most dangerously, you lose your identity. You start to identify as someone who doesn't follow through, someone who doesn't push, someone who settles. That becomes your story, that becomes your pattern, and the longer you stay in comfort, the harder it is to break out of it. Your body forgets what hard feels like. Your mind forgets what focus feels like. Your spirit forgets what winning feels like. And when you do finally try to get back on track, it's a war. Not just against the weight, or the clock, or the challenge, but against everything inside you that's been pampered and protected and coddled by comfort. That's why the first battle you must win is the battle against ease, the battle against soft living, the battle against the belief that you can grow without grind. You can't. Growth demands pain. Progress requires pressure. Discipline thrives in discomfort. If you want to become more, you have to do more. And doing more means embracing hard things. It means doing what others won't. It means going when you don't feel like it. It means making decisions based on your goals, not your feelings. Feelings will betray you, comfort will deceive you, but discipline will free you. It will free you from self-doubt. It will free you from regret. It will free you from the lie that you're not capable, because you are. But you'll never see it if you keep bowing to comfort. You'll never taste victory if you keep choosing the couch. You'll never build greatness if you keep living for the moment instead of the mission. That mission requires sacrifice. It requires consistency. It requires pain. But that pain is not punishment. It's preparation. preparation for the version of you that's waiting on the other side of effort. The version of you that isn't held back by fear or fatigue or feelings. The version that shows up cold, clear, committed. And that version does not answer to comfort. That version commands it, uses it, turns it into fuel. Because that version knows the truth, comfort is not your friend, it is your test, and every time you choose discipline over comfort, you pass that test. You step forward, you earn your ground, you become unbreakable. Fear of success doesn't look like fear. It looks like delay, it looks like indecision, it looks like constantly researching, planning, preparing, but never pulling the trigger. On the surface, you're working, you're thinking, you're staying busy, but underneath you're scared. Not scared of failure, not scared of losing, scared of what happens if you actually win, if you actually succeed. Because success changes things, it raises the standard, it eliminates excuses, it calls you out of hiding and puts you in the light. And that's what terrifies you. Deep down, people sabotage themselves because success means pressure. It means accountability. It means you don't get to hide behind struggle anymore. As long as you're fighting uphill, people will applaud your effort. But when you reach the top, they expect performance. They expect consistency. And now you have something to lose. Now you're exposed. That spotlight that once inspired you starts to feel like heat, like weight, like a burden. And the fear creeps in. What if you can't maintain it? What if you mess it up? What if people see that you're not as good as they thought? So instead of climbing, you hesitate, you stall. You keep making just one more adjustment to your plan. You tell yourself you're not ready. You tell yourself timing isn't right. But the truth is, you're afraid of what happens when things finally go right. Success requires identity shift. It forces you to become someone else, someone more disciplined, more focused, more exposed. And that's not comfortable, because you've spent years building habits that protect your insecurities. You've designed a lifestyle that allows you to play small while still looking busy. You've told yourself stories about being an underdog, about needing more time, about waiting for the perfect moment. But success doesn't wait. Success demands action, it demands ownership, and that ownership scares people. Because when you own your power, you also own your responsibility. You can't blame anyone. You can't point fingers. You can't say they held me back. It's all on you, and that kind of pressure breaks the weak. So what do people do? They protect themselves, they avoid the next level, they self-sabotage, they pick fights right before they are about to make progress. They make reckless decisions when stability starts to show up. They ruin relationships that support their growth. They procrastinate when opportunity knocks, not because they don't want success, but because deep down they're afraid of what it will ask of them. Afraid that their past won't survive in their future. Afraid that the version of them they've been won't be welcome where they're going. It's not failure they're afraid of. Failure is familiar. Failure means they get to stay in their current life, surrounded by people who expect little and demand nothing. Success means stepping out, leaving behind comfort, leaving behind old patterns, sometimes even leaving behind people who were okay with you being average. And that kind of change triggers fear. Fear that you'll lose love. Fear that you'll lose belonging. Fear that you'll outgrow the very identity that gave you security. So people stall, they shrink, they sabotage. This fear is subtle. It hides behind perfectionism. You keep reworking your project because it's not quite there. You keep changing strategies because you're still figuring things out. You keep telling people you're almost ready, but deep down you're not preparing. You're protecting. Protecting yourself from the responsibility of rising. Protecting yourself from the demand that comes with destiny. Protecting yourself from the risk of owning your power, and in doing so, you bury your potential. You sabotage your future. You choose to stay in a world you've already outgrown, because the next level requires more from you than you think you have. But that's the lie. The lie is that you're not ready. The lie is that you're not capable. The lie is that success will destroy you. It won't. What will destroy you is running from it. What will destroy you is the slow corrosion of purpose from a life lived in hiding. The voice that says, "I'll try tomorrow," is not your friend, it's your enemy. That voice feeds on fear. That voice wins when you delay. And every time you shrink back, every time you stall, that voice grows stronger. That's how self-sabotage works. It doesn't show up like a wrecking ball. It shows up like comfort, like safety, like overthinking. And before you know it, you've convinced yourself to play small just to avoid the weight of your own greatness. Most people think the enemy is outside, the critics, the competition, the pressure from the world. But the real battle is internal. It's between who you are and who you believe you are allowed to become. That's where the sabotage begins. Not with a decision, but with an identity conflict. You say you want growth. You say you want change. You say you want to level up. But deep down, there's a part of you that doesn't believe you belong there. That part is louder than your goals. That part is stronger than your intentions. It's the part that sees success as foreign, as something other people are meant for, not you. Your mind clings to old definitions. You tell yourself you're the underdog, the struggler, the one who's always trying to catch up. That becomes your story. It becomes safe, familiar, and any time you start to break that pattern, your identity panics. It fights back. It says, "This isn't you." So you sabotage, you miss the meeting, you skip the reps. You ghost the opportunity, not because you're weak, but because your identity hasn't caught up to your vision. You're trying to upgrade your life with a mindset that's still living in survival mode. When your identity is built around limitations, success feels like a threat. Growth feels like a lie. You start to fear being exposed. You think, what if people find out I'm not as strong as they think? What if I'm not ready? What if I'm not enough? These thoughts don't come from truth. They come from internal misalignment. You're wearing the armor of discipline, but underneath, your identity is still shackled to doubt. You're chasing goals that your self-image keeps rejecting. And the tension between those two forces is what causes sabotage. You think you're afraid of failing, but what you're really afraid of is becoming someone you don't yet recognize. Your habits follow your identity. If you see yourself as someone who always quits, you will. If you see yourself as undisciplined, you'll avoid routine. If you see yourself as someone who doesn't deserve more, you'll never accept more. That's how people end up stuck. Not because they don't have the tools, not because they lack the opportunity, but because their self-image won't allow them to rise. It pulls them back to where it's safe, to what's known, and the longer they live in that space, the more they sabotage anything that challenges it. You get the job, and suddenly you're late to work. You get the opportunity, and suddenly you stop returning calls. You finally start getting in shape, and suddenly you don't have time to train. These are not accidents. These are symptoms of an identity that can't handle the weight of elevation. It's trying to survive by shrinking you. It's trying to protect you from pain by keeping you small. It believes comfort is safety, but what it doesn't see is that growth is the only real safety, because anything that doesn't grow eventually dies, and you can't live full while hiding behind an outdated version of yourself. Change starts with identity, not with goals, not with routines, not with motivation, but with a decision to become someone new. A version of you that is capable, a version that isn't threatened by growth but fueled by it, that identity won't sabotage when success shows up. It won't flinch when things get hard. It won't back down just because the pressure rises. But that version only emerges when you confront your current one. When you stop trying to drag your old self into a new season. When you stop negotiating with the past and start declaring a future. That shift is brutal, it's uncomfortable, it strips away excuses, but it's the only way forward. You have to rewire your beliefs. You have to speak like the person you're becoming, act like them, show up like them, train like them, think like them, because until your identity aligns with your goals, your results will never stick. You can fake it for a while, you can push through with raw willpower, but eventually you'll snap back. Because your behavior always returns to the level of your belief, and if you believe you're not worthy, not ready, not enough, you'll find ways to prove it. Not because you want to fail, but because failure matches your story, and the mind always fights to protect the story it knows, even if that story is destroying you. Subconscious guilt is a silent saboteur. It's not loud like fear. It doesn't scream like doubt. It whispers. It hides beneath your decisions, your patterns, your hesitations. You say you want more. You set goals. You chase dreams, but every time you get close, something inside pulls back. You delay, you mess up. You break momentum, and you don't even know why. That's the power of guilt. It operates in the background. You don't see it working, but it's always working, undermining your progress, undermining your confidence, undermining your future. Guilt forms in the past, sometimes from mistakes, sometimes from regret, sometimes from things that weren't even your fault, but still left scars. And instead of healing, you carry it, you bury it, you push forward, hoping that success will erase the weight of what's behind you. But that's not how it works. If you don't confront guilt, you repeat it. Not because you want to, but because part of you believes you deserve to. You keep losing, not because you're incapable, but because some part of you is trying to punish yourself. Subconscious guilt makes failure feel familiar. It makes struggle feel right. So when ease and elevation show up, you sabotage them. Not by choice, by habit. That's why when things start going well, people panic. They say they're overwhelmed. They say they're confused. They say they need to slow down. But what's really happening is guilt has kicked in. The voice that says, "Who do you think you are? You don't deserve this. You haven't earned it." It doesn't always sound like shame. It sounds like caution. It sounds like logic. It sounds like a reason to stop. But it's not reason, it's a reflex, a defense mechanism your mind uses to keep you in alignment with what you believe about yourself. If your internal story says you're broken, you'll break anything good that enters your life. Not to ruin it, but to make the outside match the inside. People sabotage their health after they start seeing progress, not because they don't want to be fit, but because deep down they're carrying guilt from how long they neglected their body. People ruin relationships that bring them peace, not because they don't want love, but because part of them believes they're unworthy of that kind of stability. People destroy financial blessings, not because they're reckless, but because their self-image is still tied to the struggle. The struggle is where they've learned to exist. It feels like home, and anything outside of it feels like a threat. So they ruin it, quietly, repeatedly, and then blame external circumstances, never realizing it's the guilt inside doing the damage. This guilt doesn't just come from your own choices. It can be inherited, learned, modeled. Maybe someone made you feel like success was selfish, like joy was undeserved, like being great meant you were arrogant or ungrateful. So you learned to shrink, to apologize for winning, to tone down your excellence so others wouldn't feel small. And over time, that became a pattern, a belief system, something that shaped every decision you made. So when you finally try to rise, you don't just face the challenge in front of you. You face the beliefs behind you. And those beliefs don't want to let go. That's why you keep falling short. Not because the task is too big, but because you're still carrying things that don't belong to the person you're trying to become. You're dragging guilt into a space built for freedom, and the two can't coexist. Guilt doesn't allow you to enjoy progress. It turns every achievement into anxiety, every blessing into burden, every opportunity into obligation. You start questioning yourself, doubting your right to be here, looking over your shoulder, waiting for it all to fall apart. Not because it's unstable, but because you've convinced yourself it's temporary, that you're not meant to hold it, that you're just renting success, and at any moment it'll be taken away. But the truth is, guilt is not a sign that you're wrong. It's a signal that something inside still needs to be confronted. You're not unworthy, you're unfinished. And until you deal with what's underneath, you'll keep sabotaging what's above. You'll keep finding ways to make yourself pay, not in dollars, but in disappointment, in destruction, in delay, and you'll call it bad luck. You'll call it failure, you'll call it reality, but it's not. It's a wound that can't be ignored, because if you don't heal it, it will keep bleeding into every good thing you try to build.